The war began not with fire, but with silence. Deep in the galactic quadrant of Silvera's prime, a cold message was sent, a signal from the human fleet to the ancient rulers of Syari. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a warning. It was a question. Why are your ships near our colonies? The Syari Council didn't respond. Not because they were hostile, but because they were confused. For years, the Syari Empire had lived far from the edge of human space, peaceful, distant, proud. But now, warships from both sides faced each other in orbit, and tension filled the stars. In the center of all this, a young Syari girl named Syari of the Frostbound Halls stood inside the Great Silver Temple, preparing for a greeting ceremony she didn't understand. She was not a soldier, not a warrior. She was chosen by the elders to meet the human ambassador, not to fight but to speak, to offer peace, to represent the calm heart of Syari culture. She looked like ice carved into beauty, glowing blue skin, silver hair that fell like rivers, eyes that shimmered like moonlight. And under her formal armor, her heart beat faster than ever before. Her people told her, humans are emotional, wild, unpredictable. Do not let them touch you. Meanwhile, on the other side of the gate, a human stood tall and relaxed. His name was Captain Jace Rowan, a decorated soldier turned diplomat. His muscles stretched against the ceremonial armor they gave him. Though he hated formality, he believed in action, in connection, in being real. He was not there to intimidate. He was there to end a war before it even started. But no one told him that in Syari culture, physical touch, especially a hug, was sacred, ancient, shocking. It was something only given to blood family or bonded lovers. So when the great doors of the Silver Temple opened and Syari stepped forward with her arms crossed in a respectful bow, Jace smiled. Then he opened his arms wide, and in one bold, powerful move, he hugged her. The guards around the hall gasped. Banners swayed. Light from the ceiling seemed to freeze. Syari's single quotes, S body went stiff in his strong arms. Her eyes widened. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her first thought, is this an attack? Her second, why does it feel warm? She had trained for speeches, for silence, for cold diplomacy, but she had never trained for this. Jace chuckled gently. You guys really are formal. Sorry, was that not part of the script? He released her and stepped back, grinning like a man who didn't just break the most sacred law of her world. She blinked. Words finally formed. You touched me. I did, he said. Humans greet with hugs. It's a sign of peace, her voice trembled. In my culture, that's only done with deep connection. Maybe that's what we need, he replied, more serious now. Connection, not ceremony, not rules, real connection. The silence in the hall was crushing. The Syari guards had their hands on their weapons. The high priestess looked ready to faint, but Syari didn't move. She didn't step back. Instead, she asked softly, do humans always start diplomacy like this? Jace raised one eyebrow. No, but maybe we should. And then something shifted. Something ancient cracked open, not just in the hall, but in Syari's heart. The girl, who was taught to fear humans, now stood inches from one and felt no fear, only questions. Strange, burning questions. Outside, on the edge of orbit, warships still waited for orders, but inside the temple, for one strange moment, the war paused. Because of a hug. Syari stood alone in the center of the Elder's chamber. Tall shadows of ancient Syari leaders watched her from above. The room was shaped like a circle of crystal thrones, glowing softly under the icy blue light. Her heart beat like thunder inside. Her chest, you allowed a human to embrace you, Elder Thren said, his voice sharp and cold. Do you understand what this means, Syari? She looked up. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled. I do, Elder. But I did not ask for He did it before I could respond. Elder Mera leaned forward. Yet you did not strike him. You did not retreat. Syari paused. She remembered the warmth of the human's arms. The strength. The strange calm she felt, like something old and heavy had lifted off her shoulders. And the way he smiled, not like an enemy, but like someone who saw her. No. She said finally, I did not retreat, and I do not regret it. A whisper moved through the chamber. Shock. Disbelief. Elder Thren rose to his feet. You bring shame to our ways. This human violated our sacred rights. He disrespected our boundaries. Or maybe, came another voice from the shadows, he gave us something we forgot, honesty. Everyone turned. Elder Vorin, the oldest. Among them slowly stood. This young girl was chosen because she is strong in spirit, open in heart. Perhaps the human did not insult us. Perhaps he revealed something we were too blind to see. Syari's eyes widened. Elder Thren growled. Do not turn this into poetry. We are at the edge of war. Exactly, Vorin replied. And what ended war before it began? One simple act, a hug. The chamber fell silent. Bring the human to us, Elder Mera said finally. We will. Speak to him ourselves. But it was too late. Above the city, a rogue Zalari warship had already activated its weapons. Captain Jace Rowan, still inside the diplomatic zone, looked up at the alert flashing across his wrist screen. Red, blinking. Urgent, incoming strike, it read. From Zalari Command Rogue Unit, 45 seconds to impact. Jace cursed it under his breath. He turned to the Zalari tech officer in the temple. Get me Syari, now. A few floors below, Syari was being rushed down the corridor by a pair of guards. One of them whispered, We just received a signal. Someone from our side launched an attack. Her stomach dropped. What? No. They'll think we betrayed them, the guard nodded grimly. You're human. He's still here. They might think it's a trap. They reached the main chamber just as Jace stepped in. Chaos. Alien sirens echoed. Shields started to activate over the capital. But Jace did something unexpected. Again. He raised both hands and knelt on the ground. I'm not here to fight. He shouted, his voice deep and steady. You have 30 seconds to stop that strike, or this becomes something we can't fix. Syari ran to him. You knew? I intercepted the signal, he said, his eyes on hers. I came to you because I knew you could stop it. Why me? Because you're brave. Because you didn't push me away. Because I think you want peace more than war. For a second, everything froze. Then Syari turned to the guards. Open the Elder line, now. Within moments, her voice echoed into the council chamber above. This is Syari. Authorize override command Alpha 12. Deactivate rogue strike. Repeat, deactivate. A long pause. Then the signal changed. Strike aborted. A wave of relief spread across the temple. Jace let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. But the silence didn't last long. Elder Thren's voice echoed through the hall. Bring the human to the council chamber, immediately. Jace stood slowly, brushing dust off his armor. They sound fun, he joked. Syari didn't laugh. Her eyes were full of worry. They want answers, and some of them, they want revenge. Let's give them something else then, he said, walking beside her. Like what? The council chamber was colder than before. Captain Jace Rowan stood alone in the middle of the great crystal floor. Around him, the ancient Zalari elders sat high in their glowing thrones, each one watching him like a hawk. There were no windows, no light from outside. Just silence and eyes filled with judgment. Syari stood off to the side. Her heart was heavy. She knew this moment could decide everything, peace or war, truth or misunderstanding. Elder Thren spoke first. You broke protocol. You touched our chosen diplomat. And now your fleet believes we are betraying your trust. Explain yourself. Human. Jace looked up calmly. On my world, there was a time when people hated each other because of their skin, their beliefs, or their history. Countries fought for centuries. Millions died. He stepped forward, but one moment changed everything. During our greatest war, two enemy soldiers found each other in a ruined city. Both were young. Both had lost everything. Instead of fighting, one dropped his weapon and hugged the other. The elders murmured, some scoffed, but Syari leaned closer. "Why?" asked Elder Mara. "What did that do?" "It reminded them they were both human," Jace said softly. That moment was passed down. It became a story. Then a lesson. Then a movement. He took a slow breath. "You asked why I hugged Syari. It wasn't to offend. It was to say, I see you. Not your species, not your armor, just you, Elder." Thren narrowed his eyes. "And you think such weakness can build peace?" "No," Jace replied. "I think honesty can." Syari stepped forward now. Her voice was steady. "Elders, allow me to speak." They nodded slowly. "I have trained for diplomacy all my life. I was told to use logic, posture, words, but never feeling. I followed every rule, but when Captain Jace hugged me, I felt something I had never felt before." She turned to the council. "I felt real connection." Elder Voran leaned forward. "Go on," Syari nodded. "When the alert came about the rogue ship, I didn't freeze. I didn't ask the council. I trusted him. Because in that one moment, without words, he showed me who he really was." Elder Mara looked thoughtful, but Elder Thren stood, eyes burning. "And what if it's a trick? What if this is the first step in manipulation?" "Then let me take that risk," Syari said. "Not with swords, not with lies, but with trust." The room fell into a heavy silence. At JSC, he looked at Syari with quiet admiration. He hadn't expected her to defend him, not like that. Elder Voran finally stood. "Perhaps this is what we needed. Not just between humans and Zalari, but among ourselves. We forgot how to feel." Elder Mara nodded. "But the decision is not simple. The rest of our people still expect war." "Then show them something different," Jace said. "Let me stand beside Syari in front of your people. Not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, just as someone who wants peace." The council paused. Then Elder Mara raised her hand. "Very well. Tomorrow at dawn, in the Plaza of Voices, you will stand together." Jace nodded. "Thank you." As the council slowly left, Syari walked beside him. "You risked everything," she whispered. "So did you," he said. "I guess we're both either very brave or very stupid." She smiled for the first time, maybe both. But above the temple, in the orbiting fleet, something else was happening. Commander Jace, leader of the rogue warship, watched the council feed. His eyes narrowed as he saw Syari standing beside the human. "Traitor," he whispered. His second in command looked confused. "Should we prepare another strike?" Jace didn't answer. He was already walking toward the weapon controls. The twin suns rose over the silver towers of Zalari Prime, casting long golden beams across the Plaza of Voices. For the first time in centuries, the plaza was full. Thousands of Zalari citizens stood silently, watching the grand crystal platform. Banners of ancient houses swayed in the breeze. The air was thick, not with celebration, but with tension. They had heard the rumors. A human touched the diplomat. They stopped a war with one embrace. Today, they will speak together. Syari stood at the edge of the platform, her silver-blue armor gleaming. She looked calm on the outside, but inside, her heart was shaking. Beside her, Captain Jace Rowan adjusted his formal sash, rolling his shoulders like a man preparing for battle, not with weapons, but with words. "Ready?" he asked softly. Syari didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "I've never been more scared." "Same," Jace replied. "But you go first." Elder Voran stepped forward and raised his hand. Citizens of Syari, his voice echoed. We were born in ice and tradition. But today, we face something new. A moment not shaped by conquest or control, but by choice. He turned toward Syari. You may speak. She took one deep breath, then walked forward to the center. My name is Syari of the Frostbound Halls, she began. And 3 days ago, I believed humans were dangerous, cold, reckless. The crowd murmured. Then one of them broke. Our sacred rule. He hugged me. Gasps, whispers, sharp glances, but Syari raised her voice. And in that moment, something strange happened. I did not feel fear. I felt something else. I saw someone who didn't hide behind custom or armor. I saw someone honest. Jace stepped beside her now. He looked out at the sea of alien faces. He knew they didn't trust him, yet he smiled. We humans, we've made mistakes. We've been arrogant, loud, emotional, and sometimes that scares others. He paused, but when I hugged Syari, I didn't see an alien. I saw a person who was just like me, tired of fear, tired of silence, someone who wanted a future. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Syari did something unexpected. She turned to Jace and hugged him again. This time, the crowd didn't gasp. They froze. Then slowly, one of the elders stood and placed a hand over his chest, a gesture of respect. Then another, and another. Like ripples in still water, the crowd began to mirror the motion. But high above the sky, inside the rogue Syari warship, Commander Jax watched with burning eyes. They bowed to the human. He growled. His hand hovered over the weapon console. Fire the signal. Aim for the plaza. No survivors. His second-in-command hesitated. Sir, that's the capital. There are civilians, elders. They're traitors now. Jacques snapped. The weapon charged. Back on the surface. A low hum echoed through the sky. Jace looked up. His wrist device blinked red. Missile lock, he whispered. Syari single quotes. His eyes widened. What? They're going to fire. The elders received the alert at the same time. Panic swept through the crowd. Elder Mara shouted. Get the shields up. Elder Voran turned to Syari. You and the human get to cover. But Syari didn't move. Neither did Jace. They stood tall. Side by side. Jace activated his communicator. To any orbiting human vessel, lock under rogue ship Zeta 9. They are preparing an unauthorized strike. His voice was calm. Steady, commanding. The reply came instantly. Acknowledged. Targeting now. Seconds later, a streak of blue fire cut through the sky. The rogue Syari ship exploded, in orbit burning. Out like a dying star. The crowd screamed at first. Then slowly, the fear faded. Jace lowered his arm. It's over. Syari nodded, tears in her eyes. It almost wasn't. Elder Thren stepped forward, face pale. He looked at the crowd, then at Syari and Jace. And bowed. The city of Frostlight was quiet that night. After the attack was stopped and the rogue ship destroyed, the Syari capital began to heal. Banners of war were replaced with glowing lights of peace. Elders gave quiet speeches. Soldiers laid down their weapons. And in the heart of the Crystal Citadel, Captain Jace Rowan was offered something he never expected, a seat at the high table of diplomacy. We wish to make you the first human to sit among our peace council, Elder Mara said. A voice between our worlds. Jace looked at Syari, then at the glowing eyes of the elders. I'm honored, he said softly. But peace is more than titles. It's about trust, Elder Voran nodded. And trust begins with faces like yours. Outside, Syari led Jace through the quiet market paths, the air soft and cool. You changed everything, she said. In just 3 days. No, he said, we did. They stopped at a bridge overlooking the water canals that flowed through the city. Glowing fish moved like stars below. Syari spoke again, her voice gentle. When I was young, I used to believe that touching another soul, truly touching, meant danger, weakness. Now I think it might be our strength. Jace looked at her, not as a soldier, not as an alien, just as a person. I think you're right. But far beyond Syari space, in a region untouched by peace, someone else was watching. Inside a dark chamber on a distant moon, a tall figure stood before a wide screen, arms crossed behind his back. His name was Commander Threx, the warlord of the Dralvik Syndicate, a species that fed on fear, profited from war, and thrived in chaos. He had been watching the human and the Syari for weeks. And now they had ruined everything. His voice was cold and full of venom. So the girl hugged him again. His advisor nodded. Twice, sir. And the people embraced it. Then it's worse than we feared, Threx growled. The alliance is forming. And once their fleets combine, our outer rings will fall. He turned to the table behind him, where a projection of both the Syari capital and the human colonies blinked on a map. Send the message to the Scar Raiders, he ordered. We strike before the bond becomes law. And the girl? His advisor asked. Threx smiled darkly. Break the symbol, and the people break with it. Back on Syari Prime, Jace was preparing to leave the city for the human embassy when Syari handed him something small. A crystal pendant shaped like a star. What's this? He asked. A frostbound vow, she said. It means we're bound. In purpose. He stared at it, then smiled. I didn't bring a gift. You did, she said, stepping closer. You brought change. He tucked the pendant into his jacket. See you tomorrow, counselor. But the peace didn't last. That night, just before dawn, the sky tore open. A massive ship dropped from hyperspace, black as smoke, with red energy burning across its sides. No one recognized the design. Alarms screamed across the city. Unknown vessel entering low orbit. The control tower warned. No identification, no communication. Shields up. Syari ran to the central command tower. Is it one of ours? She asked. No, the officer said. We're under attack. And then the ship began to fire. Blast waves hit the outer edges of the city. Civilians screamed. Towers shook. Defense systems activated too late. In the chaos, a single smaller pod detached from the ship and dropped through the sky, aimed straight at the diplomatic district. They're trying to hit the embassy, someone shouted. And Syari knew instantly they were coming for Jace. The city burned with light and chaos. Alarms screamed through the sky as black smoke curled above the crystal towers. The enemy ship hovered like a dark god, its weapons slicing through the peaceful air that had once held music and silence. In the middle of it all, Syari ran barefoot through the broken streets. Her breath was heavy, her armor torn, but her eyes, still bright, were locked on the same direction, toward the human embassy. He's there, she whispered, dodging a falling beam. He's still alive, he has to be. Behind her, the Syari defense forces fought to hold the city's shield lines, but the attack was too fast, too coordinated. This wasn't just war. It was assassination. A direct strike to destroy the bond between human and Xelari. When Syari reached the embassy gates, she found them already open. Scorched. Bodies lay across the marble floor. Human officers, Syari guards. Her heart clenched, but she didn't stop. Not until she reached the core hall. And there, covered in ash but still standing, was Jace. He was holding a plasma rifle, eyes bloodshot, one leg bleeding. He turned as she rushed in. You came, he said, voice hoarse. She ran to him, wrapped her arms around him without thinking. You idiot, she whispered. You stayed, he smiled. You gave me a pendant. I figured that meant I should. But there was no time for relief. A crash shook the hall. The enemy drop pod had landed just outside, and the door opened with a hiss. A tall figure stepped out, draped in black armor, red lights running down its spine. It wasn't Syari. It wasn't human. It was something else. Commander Threx. Jace muttered. The warlord stepped forward, his voice cold and full of pride. So this is the human who broke tradition with a hug. He looked at Syari, and the girl who let it happen. We chose peace, Syari said firmly. Yes, and peace ruins everything. Threx raised his arm, and energy formed at his palm, but Jace stepped in front of her. You'll have to go. Through me. Gladly, Threx said, launching the blast. But it never reached them. Syari, eyes glowing, lifted her hand. A shockwave of frost burst from her skin, and ancient power only passed through the frostbound bloodline. The energy wrapped around Jace like a shield, catching the blast and deflecting it. She didn't know she had that strength, not until he hugged her. Threx stumbled back, surprised, confused. Jace eased that moment. He rushed forward, tackled the warlord to the ground, and slammed the weapon against the weak point in his armor. One blast. Silence. Threx lay still. It was over. The remaining enemy ship, without its commander, jumped to hyperspace and vanished. When the sun rose hours later, the city stood bruised, but not broken. Elders walked the streets. Citizens hugged strangers. Humans and Syari stood together, hands held in quiet honor, and at the Grand Plaza, Syari and Jace stood once again before the people. Elder Vorin spoke. Peace was not given to us by rule. It was fought for by two hearts who believed in something more powerful than fear. He turned to the crowd. From this day forward, let this be known as the dawn of unity. And the people cheered. Later that night, Jace and Syari stood alone on the crystal bridge. You know, he said, your people still look at me like I'm about to hug everyone. Syari laughed softly. Maybe they're hoping you will. He looked at her. Then he reached for her hand, not as a symbol, not for ceremony, but simply to hold it. She didn't pull away. You started a war by mistake, she said, and ended one on purpose, he replied. The stars above blinked like gentle fireflies. The city glowed below. And in that perfect moment, across two species and one fragile world, peace lived because of a hug.